First one is John Hale.
Brad.
How are you, John?
Hang on.
Oh.
Brad, looking back at the film from the opener, just overall, how did you think your guys played? Obviously, you had a couple of short fields that made a big difference there, but what can you do in those situations when you don't have a lot going on your side, luck-wise?
No, I don't think we played particularly well as a defense. There were too many lost leverage plays that resulted in essentially free yards. We've got to do better out there on the perimeter. You talked about the short fields. I mean, that's part of football. And the idea of playing really good defense is about rising up in adverse situations, and we talked about that. And that's the key to being a good defense. It's got nothing to do with stats. It's got everything to do with rising up in key moments. When those opportunities, you've got to view that as an opportunity. There's no bigger momentum swing than if you're given a short field and you flip that momentum. Just like when our offense was good enough they get pinned on the one, all of a sudden we get a great punt, all right, and we completely flip the field position-wise. That's a momentum change. We've got to do the same thing on defense. We've got to rise up. We've got to elevate. We've got to make plays. At worst, we've got to force field goals. And so that's something we've got to get better at.
All right, next is John Clay.
Brad, Ole Miss last week, they used Corral, more of a passing quarterback, as their quarterback, but they also used Plumlee in a Wildcat. They split him out, tried to throw the ball to him, did some other things with him. What sort of problems does that present? And as a defense, do you do extra stuff for that, or you just play it straight up?
Well, no, it presents a huge issue. When you've got a guy that is dynamic as Plumlee is, and he's in there at the same time. I mean, you're basically operating against two quarterbacks, and Corral's an athlete himself, so you can't just ignore him when if Plumlee's a quarterback and he's elsewhere. So no, it creates plenty of issues that you have to sort of work through as a defense. And obviously being able to see that on film helps, prepare. But I'm sure they're going to have, plenty of options, depending on which way they want to go with that package.
Jeff Drummond.
Hey, Brett, we talked a lot about the linebackers, going into the season, and I was curious what you saw, especially from those inside guys that maybe haven't played a whole lot yet. What did you see on film from them, and did they play as to expectation?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think anybody on the defense, played particularly well, other than maybe Josh Pascal and Yusuf. Everybody else, I think to a man would say that it wasn't to their standard. And so, I think we can play better inside. I think we can play better on the outside. As far as, De'Eric got some snaps. Bembry got some snaps. Casey's looked good this week in practice, so anticipate him getting some run this week as well. So, again, those guys, they have to continue to elevate. Our starters have to play like starters. And, we need to get better. Again, that was not a good enough performance, for, what we view is our standard. And the nice thing right now is that we've got another week, and so we can correct it. But it's about preparing. It's about executing. It's about being dialed in the film room, out on the practice field. And, we've got a huge challenge ahead of us. I mean, 623 yards, it's a huge number that you got to defend.
Larry Vaught.
Brett, you talked last week going in about needing a better pass rush this year. You didn't get as much pressure on Nix. I don't think it's probably what you were hoping. What do you get to do different, maybe along the lines this week, and do you anticipate different personnel playing any of that defensive front?
Yeah, I think that may be a little bit, overstated in terms of, when you go back and you watch the film, everybody just assumes it's all about sack production, in terms of, whether we were able to get to the quarterback or not. There were some plays that he did a nice job extending. I thought we did. There were several rushes that didn't end up in sacks, but that definitely affected his throw. Some was the call; it wasn't the player's issue; it was more of a call issue. But yeah, do we want to see the quarterback on the ground more? Absolutely. But again, I'm still believe that we've got the players up front to get that done. But it's the call, it's the scheme at the time. It's everybody's got to work together in conjunction. And there were a couple of plays if we could hold the coverage a second more, he's on the ground. But yeah, I mean, there's everything we could do, we can do better. And but I thought Josh Paschal was in the backfield, affecting plays more than people probably give him credit for.
Josh Moore?
Hey, Brad, some of the talking with the transfers there, I remember a few times it seemed like the guys were really close to bringing Bo down, but I mean, he's a pretty evasive dude. But just tackling as a whole, where do you think it was? Were you happy with that, or do you think it was something that needed to be addressed this week?
Yeah, I mean, you was not entirely pleased with the tackling. Now, I will say from a first game, it wasn't the worst I've ever been around. It wasn't the best I've ever been around. Obviously, it's still an emphasis point. We emphasize tackle every single day. I mean, if you're going to play defense, that's the number one thing you got to do. You've got to tackle the football. You also got to leverage the football. The thing that I think we did worse than tackling was the leverage piece. And we've got to leverage the football, not let it get to an edge, set hard edges, understand where our help is. And we've got to do better this week because they've got playmakers. And if they get the ball to the edge, and we lose that edge, they can go a long way.
John Clay?
Brad, on the plays that Seth Williams made Saturday, did you feel like your guys had good position? It was just a great athlete making a great play, or was there things that your guys could have done a little better?
It was a combination. I think, his 2 touchdown catches, the one, where he caught it, on the double post, was a really impressive throw, by Bo off his back foot. Boog was right there in his face to throw it up high, up over the goal, basically the crossbar. 18 made a spectacular, leaping catch. Ty was sliding up underneath. That's a heck of a throw and a catch. Now, from a coverage standpoint, we got a little loose on the edge. Our eyes got in the backfield, and so there created some separation. If we don't make that mistake, and we're tighter in coverage, we might be able to go up through his hands as he's catching the ball. Because a guy that goes up that high for a ball, it's going to be hard for him to protect himself. So we got a chance to go up through his hands. Since we were trailing the play, we didn't get a great shot at it. The one against Fat down in the red zone, it's a grown man catch, and those are those 50-50 balls. Fat won one earlier in the game, then Seth came back and got that one on him. There was a small technique thing that we could do better, but hey, listen, if you're going to play corner and you're going to get on an island, and that call he was going to get no help. Everybody knew it. You're going to win some and you're going to lose some, and we've talked about it at the beginning. If we nitpick every time that they lose, they won't have any confidence. If you're out there on the edge, right, you've got to just be brimming with confidence. And if they catch it, boom, put the ball down, let's go for the next one. There's plenty to work with there, and, we'll continue to improve.
Aaron Gerson?
Hey, Brad, kind of piggybacking off that, Elijah Moore is a different type of receiver with his size, but 227 yards against Florida last week. How big of an emphasis is he going to be slowing down, and what impressed you the most from his film in that game?
Really impressive. For those around here, the name that they would know, he's very much sort of like a Tutu Atwell in that regard. He's a really dynamic slot receiver. He can roll when the ball gets in his hand. Once it touches his hand, he's hard to tackle. He's smooth in his transitions. So obviously he's going to be somebody that we've got to know where he is on the field. But, he's not the only one. The Drummond kid had a really good day at wideout. The tight end is a good player, made some really good catches. So they've got plenty of targets, and Corral seems comfortable in this system. We've got to do a good job with him, managing the pocket, because, again, similar to Bo last week, he's got, plenty of escapability. And so, at all three phases and all three levels of our defense, we're going to get stressed. And it's very similar in terms to Louisville. And, we've got to rise up and, again, limit those explosives like we did last year.
Thank you.
Nick?
How do you, when you've got a guy out there like a Seth Williams, what can you do to try to take away a receiver that's the other team's best player?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously you can roll coverage to him. You can do different things to affect him. But you just have to understand, just like anything in life, if there was a perfect defense, everybody would run it. So if you're going to roll your defense to a certain guy, it's going to expose others. So you've got to understand when you can do that and when you can't. Offenses do a nice job, like on his first touchdown catch. They create stacks and bunches, so then it gets a little bit harder to be able to put your hands on them early in the down. So again, there's some different things we can do coverage wise. To try to take away a player like that, but just understand, the hat's got to go on somebody. And when you start trying to do that, just understand that it can create weaknesses elsewhere. And so everybody tries to share the load throughout a game.
Nick,
Elijah Moore is kind of the same. I mean, he does a lot for Ole Miss. What have you seen from him just on tape?
Yeah, he's where Seth is more of an outside X receiver. Elijah's going to be more inside. They can get him the ball a lot of different ways. He can line up in the backfield. He can fly sweep. He's going to line in the slot, again, very much like Tutu Atwell. So they're going to find ways to get him touches and get him the ball, because when he touches the ball, he's dynamic. And so we've got to, always know where he is on the field. And be well aware. But again, if you just said that becomes your sole focus, they've got enough playmakers elsewhere that they can go to. They don't have to rely on just one person.
Josh Moore?
How do you prepare differently, if at all, for a team like Ole Miss that runs a lot of plays, wants to put up a lot of yardage and kind of win it with their offense more so than an Auburn that I think is probably more comfortable playing the kind of a game that you're getting, kind of playing the same type of game that you guys play, running the ball and really, slowing things down.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know a lot of the comments last week were, hey, how are we going to keep up with Coach Malzahn and their tempo and Coach Morris and all that. Well, these guys they take tempo to sort of a different level, and they play even faster than Auburn. So we've got to do it again. It's the same thing we talked about last week. And I think as a coaching staff, we need to continue to be better and stress that urgency of getting our feet in the ground, getting our eyes where they need to be, get the call, and execute. And it's not just a somewhat execution. It has to be precise execution of your responsibility. And I can do a better job of trying to put them in better spots. I need to. Our guys would say that they could play their technique better. Our coaches need to continue to coach that technique as good as they can. But again, the nice thing is we've got another chance to show what we're all about.
Okay, last three, John Clay.
Brad, on that, kind of piggybacking on that, have you been pleased with the way your guys have reacted, the way they've come out of the loss, and the way they've approached this week?
I have. I think for the most part, they've really been dialed in. Again, just like any any game week. Everything's not perfect. There are plenty of corrections, that we've got to be making, from yesterday's practice to today's practice. I thought yesterday's practice had a great sense of urgency. Today was solid, but again, I think it could have been better, especially towards the end. It felt like, wasn't quite, the urgency that we need towards the tail end of practice. And, we made sure that they understood that. And I think our guys will respond. Again, the leaders of this team, the leaders of this defense, right, need to demand that. And I think they will.
Jeff Drummond?
Yeah, Brad, I don't know, have you crossed paths with Lane Kiffin much in your career? And just based on what you've seen on film, does he remind you, offensive play calling wise, of anybody that you have coached against?
We have not crossed paths in our career. Everybody sort of has their own system, and there's bits and pieces that you're like, oh, it's kind of like this, it's kind of like that. But he's very unique in sort of the way he calls. And the thing that I will say is he's very adaptive. Depending on where he is in what situation with his personnel, I think he does a really nice job of putting them in the best situation to win. And so every team he has a little bit different look. And there's some underlying, you can see some underlying sort of core principles that he likes as an offensive play caller. But at the end of the day, for him, it's about production. And he does a nice job of adapting to his personnel.
Lonnie?
Brad?
Hey, Lonnie.
Brad, you hear me, Brad?
I can.
Brad, you talk about someone on the offensive side of the football that's giving you a good look on defense this week to maybe duplicate some of that players and whatever. Like, for instance, the slot receiver you were talking about. Anybody, is offense giving you a good look?
They're giving us a really good look. We've because of the pace we're trying to play at, we rotate sort of a lot of bodies through. I will say, I don't want to, say anybody in particular, because again, I think they're all giving really good effort, in different variations. And, we're lucky we get to rotate over and have, in certain periods get to have, a guy like Travis Tisdale back there, given the look of Ely, who's a really, really, really talented back, someone we probably haven't talked enough about, and really helps that engine go, and then Juton McClain can come over and give that look when he rotates with Tiz over to the, back and forth, with the offense. So, those guys have done a great job.
All right, then the last one is Nick Roush.
Going into the season, whenever we ask you about how Marquez and Jared were doing, you always bring up Jared Jackson, but I don't think we were picking up on your kind of hints. What did he do in the preseason to earn those reps as a true freshman, and how did you evaluate his first game out there?
Well, in terms of being able to earn it, he's got a really natural feel, from that inside linebacker position. A lot of playing that position is just a feel of blockers, a want to of blocker take on when linemen climb to the second level, thump upon your finish. He's got good, eyes, eye discipline in there. Again, I think those other two have really improved, and I think a lot of it stems from the fact that, that's the position De'Eric's always played, and the other two have, sort of transitioned from outside to inside, and they've really come along. I've really been impressed this week, especially with Jared. I think, Jared's had a really good week of practice, and the same with Bem. So, those guys, again, will have to continue to grow as far as De'Eric's performance. I thought he did some things that were good, some things obviously that we need to clean up, but to be a true freshman, to go down on the road in the SEC, that's a hard thing to do. And I think he represented himself well, in those snaps that he got. But again, there's some things, especially out on the perimeter, that we need to be able to clean up, some tackles that we can make out there, and we expect him to make out there.
All right, Coach, thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and we'll have some players here shortly.